Hi, welcome, Fabian.
Hi, am I the only
Welcome,
one here?
welcome.
How are you?
Hi, welcome, Fabian.
Hi.
Yeah, we know it's supposed to start in about 5 minutes, so we're trying to leave everyone to join.
Okay.
And yeah, am I the only one here? Welcome.
Oh, I think there's a delay.
How are you? Welcome, Fabian. Hi. Yeah, we know it's supposed to start in about 5 minutes, so we're trying to leave everyone to join. And yeah, am I the only one here? Welcome.
Oh, I think there's a delay.
How are you? Hi. Yeah, we need to put them doing something healthy. Healthy. So let me try and fix this. I think there's a delay according to what you just said. It's true. I can feel it reversion. Let me try and sort it out. Let me try and sort the delay before people join. So let me try and fix this. I think there's a delay according to what you just said. It's true. I can feel it reversion. Let me try and sort it out. Let me translate before people join. Fix this. I think there's a way according to what you think is true. I feel really Hello, can you hear me now? Is there a delay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There's a
Um,
delay now.
Let me see. I don't think so.
Okay, I think we're good. I think we're good. Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, feels like it's still there.
Yeah, I can hear you. Still there. Let me see. I
Do
don't
you
think so.
do you have two things open at the same time, by any chance?
I think we're good. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Something that right away.
Maybe you have two applications open at the same time.
You have two things open at the same time, by any chance. I think we're good. I'm sorry. Something that right away. Maybe you have two applications open at the same time. Okay. Now, are we good? Are we good now?
Yeah, I think so. But
Yeah, I think so. Hi.
Hi there.
Yeah. Hi, Janet.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I think we're good.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
green. Sometimes you have to turn around this technology and tell yourself you're no more a young person. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome. Let's just give them like 2 more minutes, and I'm pretty sure everybody will join within that hour because it's just four. We agreed to start, so it's like 3:59 here in Nigeria. I don't know where you are. I don't know where. Oh, I think Janet is in Kenya. It's like almost 2 hours or 3 hours ahead. So Champia is here, and I know she is going to handle the mic very soon. I'm just here to just catch up for everyone. Tim is here and Fabian is here. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you guys turning in to give this remarkable speech. So I will leave it for Kempia to introduce this event for everyone. So we'll go on her. So Kempia, you can on mic, you can unmute yourself and swing to action because everyone I think is here. Apart from two of the panelists, because Korede is almost yeah. Yeah, over to you, Kempia.
Oh, evening from here. I time 4 p.m. So I'm sorry for some seconds behind schedule, right? Thank you, George, for starting up the conversation, this session today. And I'm excited to have everyone on board.
Yeah, it seems we're losing you at some point.
So before I knew join, I would like for us to quickly just introduce.
We lost you at almost every time.
Can anyone hear me? If you can hear me, can you drop on remote?
So maybe where you are, a big network issue. Can you hear us?
Wow.
We lost you almost every bit of your conversation.
Yes, I can. Okay, I just but
Hello.
Oof. Can you hear me?
Hello, Kempia. Kempia, can you hear me? Oh?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So, but can anyone hear Kempia right now speak?
It's breaking.
Yes, it's breaking. So we didn't even I didn't hear whatsoever you said. So maybe if you can turn back again and just give us another introduction, then we can actually connect. It's still breaking.
Might be the video that's taking up bandwidth.
Yeah.
It's probably the internet from that side.
Yeah.
If we can
Maybe
hear ourselves pretty well.
Yeah.
Or maybe she
Hello, Josh.
Yes, we can hear you now. So Kempia is out. Let's just give her 2 seconds. But right now, I will just say something. Welcome everyone to the Young Lions Film Festival pre-festival roundtable, because I see this as a boost for us to like have an engagement about what it's coming and what may come in the coming months. And we just want to post up a moment to say that, okay, yes, whosoever is watching, wherever you're watching, there is a force coming. And that force that is coming is me and you that are actually pro-African.
Now I've lost George.
Might be because we have videos on, sometimes network can be.
Yeah. Should all of us that don't talk maybe mute? Does that help?
Or maybe we could turn off the video and see if that helps. I'll turn off my video.
African and Africans too. It just show me.
Have we lost George also? see. You're muted, George.
Okay. How about now?
Perfect.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, I can hear you, George.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Oh. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. So, as I said earlier, this is just a pre-festival roundtable where we're just trying to like gather the voices that matters for us in Africa and to actually have a home where we can actually call our own. Here I have written, I said, welcoming everyone to this festival from wherever you're joining us, from Cape Town to London. I say my heartfelt welcome. Oh, Tempia is back. Tempia, is your network stable right now? Okay, you're muted. Maybe you can.
I'm wondering why can you hear
It's
me?
back again. Yes, we can hear you now.
So I'm wondering why the network decided to misbehave this evening. But I hope that as it is right now, we will continue without any interruption at all.
Great, so. Cool.
Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Please, if you can hear me, drop an emoji.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you. Oh, back again. Back again. Are you good?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm hoping that I am good. Okay. I'm trying to use the best network here, and the best seems to be the worst anyway. So yeah, I hope we get to the end of it.
No. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, again,
Yeah.
and I hope that to the end. Do we have everyone on board? I can see 18 people here. Whoa. Okay. Please, if you can hear me, can you drop an emoji? Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? If you can, please, can you drop an emoji? Just to be sure that we're together.
We're together.
All right, thank you so much. I can hear someone
Yeah,
say
we can
we
hear
can
you.
hear you. Thank you. Good evening again from here. So I will quickly, as we have joined in, I will quickly just give us George, what have you done so far? Because I'm just joining in. I hope that I'm not behind schedule as it is. What have you done so far?
Nothing. We're just waiting for you.
George.
I say nothing. We're just waiting for you. Can you hear me?
What have you done so far?
I say we're just waiting for you. Can you hear me? I'm pretty sure everyone
Yes.
can hear me.
Yes, yes, Joshua. I said, what have you done so far?
I said we're just waiting for you to pop in.
Okay, I am truly sorry. I wish I can have total control over this network, but I hope that by now we should be able to take up from there. So I said from the beginning, before my network interrupted, but my name is Kempia Best, and I'm going to be moderating today's session. And I'm glad that we have more people joining in from when we started earlier. Okay, so I'll quickly allow for us to settle in, and I will give in my welcome address. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Today is a special day, very special day. And I wonder why my network decides to mess up today. All right. From wherever you're joining us in the world, whether from Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, Cape Town, Toronto, London, or beyond, I say a heartfelt welcome to the pre-festival gathering of the Young Film Festival, Young Lens Film Festival. My name is Kempia Best, and it is with immense joy and gratitude that I speak to you today as we begin this exciting journey together. Though we're connecting virtually, the energy is real, I can see. The passion is real and the dream is alive. The Young Lens Film Festival was created to shine a spotlight on the fresh, fierce, and fearless voices of a new generation of African and diaspora filmmakers. It is a space where stories are nurtured, dreams are elevated, and the future of African cinema is reimagined. This pre-festival event is just a taste of what's to come. And I'm so glad you're here to be part of it. So what can you look forward to? In May 2025, we'll officially launch the inaugural edition of the festival, a 4-day celebration packed with bold and original film screenings by young talents across the continent and the diaspora. Insightful masterclasses, industry talks, and mentorship sessions designed to sharpen your creative and professional lens. Pitch platforms and networking opportunities to connect creators with the people and possibilities that matter. And a vibrant showcase of culture, collaboration, and cinema. We're also unveiling the Young Lens Initiative, a long-term vision that goes beyond the festival. It's a commitment to developing talent, creating access, and building a sustainable creative ecosystem for the next generation. This is more than just an event. This is a movement. So tonight, as we gather online, let's take a moment to breathe in the beauty of what's possible. Let's celebrate creativity. Let's champion young voices. And most of all, let's begin this journey together. Thank you for being here, and thank you for believing in this great initiative. I am glad that it is because you believe in this dream that you are here today. Thank you for joining in, and welcome to the Young Lens Film Festival. Welcome to the future of African cinema. Thank you, everyone. Just so that I know you are excited for being here, can you drop an emoji that resonates with you, that speaks well about that you love so much? Maybe your favorite emoji, and just drop it so that I will see it fly. I will drop my own reaction that speaks love. I love you all, and thank you for joining in. Thank you, George. I will give George this space to say a brief welcome to us all. Hello, George, are you here?
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Yeah, thank you for a wonderful remark, opening us into the new wave of cinema that we are actually going into, because the young ones are just the first. And for me, I have actually been an sucker for an initiative that is actually great, and people that are willing to like change the narrative. And for me, young filmmakers have actually come all out and they are saying that something great is about to happen. And for us at the Young Lions Film Festival, we are happy to say that we are welcoming everyone. And thank you, Fabian, for agreeing to speak on the Greater Show. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Korede. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Cassandra. And thank you, Asaf. Asaf is yet to join. I'm pretty sure he should be in no time. So these are great minds coming from Africa, and they are Africans, and we are going to learn so much from them. And I hope everyone sitting or watching from wherever you're watching, you're going to enjoy the little information you're going to get. But at the same time, it's not all about the information you're going to get. It's the networking zone that we're going to create for everyone, and for us to actually believe in it and connect ourselves together. So I will say this will be a great joy to say, to listen to you people and to hear what is coming out from Africa by Africans with Africans. Thank you very much. Kempia, over to you. Kempia, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Without wasting more of your time, I think still your network, but we will cope.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I can hear you, George.
Okay, maybe Tim, it's over to you. It's over to you to just keynote and to welcome us and share your experience so far as a filmmaker, as a documentary storyteller, and at the same time, a great motivator. Over to you. I will say thank you. I think the mic is passed on to you now to welcome us and to give us your. Okay. Tim, can you hear me?
Sorry, you were talking to me. Yes, I can. Let me just switch on my camera.
Okay, great.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone. It's very awesome being in this room. George, did I understand it correctly? You just want me to talk a little bit about my own experience here.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
I come from a small little country called Namibia. We have a population of only about 3 million people, which makes it a rather special country on this continent. Our country, however, has a film commission, the Namibia Film Commission, which has over the last 2 decades started putting funds into the local industry, which allowed us to develop documentary films, short feature films, and actual feature films. Quite a few have come out over the years. And the great thing with the National Film Commission, the Namibian Film Commission in this country, is that there was a lot of freedom in terms of the stories that we could tell. So there wasn't a lot of meddling in terms of the creativity, as long as your film kind of dealt with something that had national importance, whether it's cultural heritage, whether it is representing the various groups that make up our country. It has pushed us to a level where we are indeed now in a position where our films and documentaries and even television content has traveled to certain festivals on the continent and beyond the continent, but also in recent years, the last 2-3 years, MultiChoice has started commissioning content within Namibia. The challenge I think we often had is that we because we're, in terms of population, such a small country, we didn't have consistent kind of work that was coming our way. Now, what I mean by that is that you couldn't have actors that are full-time actors, because they would have maybe 1 or 2 roles a year. And so they actually had to, have a job as in the post office or in a bank or wherever in order to make ends meet. And similarly, a lot of the creatives had to kind of find ways in which they could make either image films for corporate companies or film conferences when they are not making their own productions. But like I say, in recent years, in the last 2-3 years, there's actually this shift here in Namibia where we are now able to more consistently create content. And I think what I've noticed in Namibia now specifically, I don't know how it applies necessarily all across the continent, there's always a strong leaning towards the fictional content. There's not so much interest in documentary content, but if you think of it, in more cases than not, creating documentaries is actually kind of cheaper. Why I say kind of cheaper is you don't have necessarily the big crews and have to control the locations as much. You work with actual people in actual locations, so your shooting crew can be a whole lot smaller. Where you do spend more time in documentary is in the post-production. But for close to 20 years, I've been making now documentaries here in Namibia, and what I've always noticed is I can use the documentaries to hone the storytelling skills, to actually tell stories or develop, filmic approaches, which I then can, when I get to have a budget for a fictional film, start implementing that. And I think, I don't know how it applies to some of the attendees, but the young people I would like to strongly encourage to also explore documentary filmmaking whenever they have the opportunity, because it is definitely the kind of filmmaking in which you can sort of cut your teeth, develop a little bit your narrative styles, and then try and transpose that into the fictional realm once you get there. I think I'll leave it there, Joel, for now, to obviously also give opportunity to the other panelists, but that's just a brief intro from me.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm pretty sure we're going to move deeply and to dive into the program. Tempia, would you want to introduce the next speaker, and while we connect through the whole topics that we're going to be talking about. Today we are going to be exploring from emerging filmmakers what story means to them, to the technology, AI form of storytelling, to funding, and how well you can actually market your content, and to Pan-African films, what actually resonates with us as Africans. So I'm pretty sure the next person that is going to be speaking is going to be Korede. She's going to be talking about an emerging filmmakers, stories and connections. So Korede, the mic is passed on to you while we listen and to enjoy from the wealth of your experience. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, George. My name is Korede Aziz. I am a Nigerian filmmaker. I'm a writer, director. I like to say I've touched almost all the technical departments in the filmmaking space. I started as a sound person. I've done a bit of camera work. And I like to tell young filmmakers that taking that approach can help you become a better rounded filmmaker, but I guess that's a topic for another day. Just to be sure I got your prompt correctly, George, you want me to talk about AI in the filmmaking space? You're frozen up on my screen.
Oh, so those are actually topics that we have been, those are topics we're going to be floor.
You're breaking up, George. Could you type in the chat? I just want to be sure I have your prompt
You
correct.
know, you have your
You're still breaking up.
topic which the
So I'm gonna type in the chat
science to
because I can't hear you, George. Or Fabian, is there anyone else that can help me with the prompts that George shared?
Sorry, what
If
did
you
you
heard
say?
him.
I didn't hear. What did
I'm
you say?
back. Can you hear me now?
Okay, George is back. Yes, I can hear you.
Hello.
Hi, George.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Fabian, I was asking if there was anyone else who could share the prompt that George gave me. I just wanted to be clear. Do you want me to talk about AI in the filmmaking space?
Yes, I wasn't quite clear about it. You did mention AI, so I do think it, and you also mentioned something, I think about is it finance or yes, it was breaking up on my side as well, but I did hear
Okay.
something about AI. But I think he did mention talking to AI in the filmmaking space, and there were some other things he mentioned that I kind of missed.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So he talked about young filmmakers too, and how that relates to them. I guess in all the new technology that is also coming out, and how.
So correct. I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, George. Fabian
Yeah,
and
so I
Cassandra,
was
help
just
me
trying
out.
to say that you're gonna be talking about
Okay, you're breaking up again, George, but I'm going to
Wow.
jump into it because I do have a hard stop at 4:45. Interesting thing about AI, I made a film called Halima's Choice. That was, I believe, 2 years ago now. And it's one of the short films that's part of the African Folktales Reimagined collection on Netflix. And that particular film, I kind of hesitate to say it's about AI, but it's got an AI component in there. It's basically a world where, we're in the future, it's sci-fi, and, humans are interacting with AI in interesting ways, even to the point that you can't tell the difference between who a human being is and who an AI is in human skin. And that got me thinking about, now when you look at what ChatGPT can do and some of what AI can do in terms of the writing, there are articles that you come across and you might not be sure whether it was AI that wrote this or something else, or a human being rather. And I imagine that we're going to see a lot more of this outside of the writing space, going into film. We're already seeing that with photography, art. I don't know how many of you are active on Twitter, but there's this thing that's been making the rounds, this whole topic of how far do we really want to let AI take over arts, so to speak. And as artists, and I think filmmakers are artists first, as artists, it can be a bit scary because you spend a lot of time perfecting your craft, working on your craft. We all know how draining filmmaking can be, and especially those of us who lean toward the more artistic side of things, because of course there are commercial filmmakers and all of that, depending on how you want to categorize yourself. But there might be a bit of that apprehension that what is going to happen, is AI going to take my job? Maybe you're a VFX person and it's looking like, oh, AI might take that over at some point. And while I understand that apprehension, and I think it's good to have a healthy dose of that, I do not think that people should be panicking. I think that just like with every other technological revolution, there's going to be the good and there's going to be the bad. And you need to be on top of things right from the beginning so that you can see early on how best you can profit from the changes that I'm making, and use them to make your work even better so that you can not just stay relevant, but stay ahead pretty much. And from writing to the more technical aspects of things, I am pretty much very excited, more excited than terrified of AI and what it can do. I think that it's going to help make filmmaking cheaper. It's going to help make filmmaking more accessible. And these two things are very important for the African filmmaker and for young filmmakers, because of course we know one of the biggest hurdles is money, right? To making a good film, even though of course, yes, there are always people who say you can make a film on any budget, and that's true. You can make a film on any budget, but there are some kinds of films and there are dreams that you will not be able to fulfill unless you had certain amounts of money. So it is a good thing if we can actually make filmmaking cheaper. In terms of where the technology is at right now, it is, I mean, I want to say that it's not yet at a point where we can rely so heavily on it. But at the same time, over just a few years, I mean, taking Sora, for instance, it has improved so much. It's crazy. Like if you haven't tracked the development before, just go and track what the first Sora video was, how long ago that was, and where it's at right now. The difference is amazing, and it blows my mind to think of what's going to be possible in the next 5 years. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was considering, oh, should I learn animation? Because I had this, I went down this rabbit hole of, animation and all the things you could do with it. But then when I thought about all the years that it would take me, all the time it would take me to build those skills, I was like, nah. But with AI now, and in the near future, I'm pretty sure that a single person would be able to make a full animated movie in a fraction of the time. And more than anything, I think African filmmakers need to jump on this like right now or like yesterday, because we have so many amazing stories to tell. And I keep saying it. I don't know about you guys, but I've personally gone off Hollywood, and it's been for a while. I feel like we keep seeing the same things over and over again. But here we still have so much material to tap into. Right now you could tell and think about not just our modern day stories, even though yes, there are lots of modern day stories that we can tell, but think about even the film that I made, sci-fi or fantasy. You want to tell a historic story, you want to set a story in some fantasy land in Africa or whatever. With AI now, it makes it more accessible for us, makes it more possible for us to tell those kinds of stories without having to spend those kinds of massive budgets. And one thing that I think the main thing that has prevented us also from accessing those massive budgets, it's not just a matter of interest, because I mean, we saw what happened with Black Panther and the kind of interest that film generated. But the African market itself is just not as, Africans just don't have that much to spend on consuming movies. I mean, Hollywood makes as much money as it makes right now because people can't afford to go watch movies, right? So when you look at the economics of things, and that's one thing that I try to tell young filmmakers also think about. You also have to think about the economics of things, because as much as you're artists and everything, you also have to think about the money, and that can help you sort of plan and think realistically about your career and where you want to take it. So just knowing that, first off, okay, we are limited in terms of the market. We're limited in terms of the market. So how then can we tell the stories that we want to tell within the constraints? number one being budget, of course. Again, just saying this to just drive home the point that we need to get on this right now, and we need to figure out ways to start telling our stories right now with these technologies, because if you don't jump in now, you're not able to you're not going to learn as fast as people who started experimenting with these things, say last year. And people, there are people who have started experimenting with this thing like the moment it came out. So if you haven't started, what are you waiting for? So yeah, that's the one thing I would want to get across first. Start now to experiment with all of these. So I see a question in the chat. Tech is revolutionizing storytelling. How do you see AI and virtual production shaping the future of African storytelling? I think that I have answered that question a bit. Pretty heavy on the savings side of things and reducing costs. And I do think that it will help us collaborate better as well. One of my biggest concerns is how expensive it can be to travel across borders in not even just the rest of Africa, but even thinking about West Africa alone. And I can't even imagine the headache that will come with cross-border productions. I've got it in my head for the longest time. I would love to work on a collaborative project with a Kenyan filmmaker, even with a Senegalese filmmaker. But again, budget constraints and all of that. But with virtual production and with AI, I see that helping us bridge, build those bridges, bridge those gaps. And I do think that the future of our industry lies a lot in collaboration, especially as African filmmakers and young filmmakers. I think it's essential for us to tap into those networks across borders. Technology has made the world small, and it's making the world smaller. There's no reason why we cannot make all those collaborations happen. And I think that would all benefit from sharing our different unique perspectives and just having that conversation, cross-border conversation, and sharing that with the world. And if we can stand united on that front, I think that it'll go a long way in pushing Africa to the forefront. That's just what I think. And how can young script writers leverage digital tools to get their stories seen? Getting their stories seen. When you say getting their stories seen, do you mean getting their stories made, seen by who exactly? Are you targeting Hollywood production companies? Kempe, do you mind elaborating? But while I wait for you to elaborate on what you mean there, I have experimented with using AI to write. And that gets tricky because I don't think, I mean, AI is great for, grammar checks, basic writing. But when it comes to telling stories that come from the heart, and I do think that everyone who's going to write a script should write a story that comes from your heart, you can't leave it to AI. You can use it to support yourself in terms of, feedback. That's one way I've used it a lot. This is how I'm thinking, just to give you a basic idea of like prompts and stuff. This is the story that I have. Does this structure make sense? I'm trying to follow this structure, or these are the ideas that I have. What are the other possibilities? That sort of a thing. Just using AI to just push in all those different directions, kind of like how you would use it to brainstorm with a fellow writer. And what that helps you do again is, I think it helps us, it can help us to elevate our storytelling. So if as a writer who is just starting out, I use AI to help me think through things and at least get my synopsis or whatever to a certain point before I can take it to the next level and send it to, say, a fellow writer or a senior colleague or something, for someone else to just give feedback. It sort of gives you that leg up and helps you get things done faster. because speed, again, is something that you find is very important in this business. So there, I would say, is one way that script writers can use AI, but I'll always caution against just relying on it 100%, especially for writing. Maybe a time will come where AI gets so good that you could just put in a few prompts and then it gives you a complete script, original idea and everything, but that originality will always have to come from you. And I have heard people say that they worry that AI will make people lazy creatively, in terms of creativity. And I think that that danger is there if you allow yourself to get lazy, pretty much. But I think there's even a greater potential to become more productive with the help of AI. Yeah, but I guess just to round off everything, like my thoughts around this is, number one, be more excited than afraid. Number two, jump into it super fast, like jump into it right now, experiment quickly, look into all the different tools, because you do not want to just start getting into it when it's become so big and everybody's using it and everybody's like miles ahead of you. And even though the technology isn't at the point where, you could say it's perfect, a 10 out of 10 right now, start creating with it now. And even put that stuff out there. I mean, I imagine communities of young African filmmakers just experimenting with AI, making short films, doing whatever, and sharing what they're learning. I think that would be a huge leg up for us, because I think that we do need to grow together as a community and as a nation. Whether you're from Nigeria or Kenya or Namibia or Senegal. So yeah. I wonder if anyone has any questions for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Korede. If you can hear me, thank you.
Yeah, I
that
can
was
hear you.
an amazing one here from you. To hear that we can actually tap in from all these new invention technology, what is in our front, because we will not shy away to say that AI is not here to stay, AI is not here. And at the same time, all I just want to ask is just to bring you back a bit to just ask, for you as a young filmmaker, right? You've done a couple of films, some are in the mainstream, and a lot of stuffs have actually shown that, yes, you have the potential and you bring in your A game, right? So talk to us into one thing as a young filmmaker, right? How will you shape the future of Africa? You've actually done some stuff. So let's use your film, your latest film, as a point of call. Do you want to share like a little bit of 2 minutes or 3 minutes about that process, how you get to where you are?
You want me to share a process about where I am?
Your journey so far.
My journey so far. Okay, I'll see how I can try to wrap this up in 1 minute, because I do have a hard stop. But I would say that my journey so far has been marked by intention, being very intentional about the kinds of stories that I want to tell and why I want to tell them. And I think that is very important for every filmmaker to have. Yes, it's fine to be a filmmaker because it's something that you love. But at the end of the day, at the core of every film is a message and is a soul. And the question for you is, what does that look like for you? What is the thing that you are burning to say? And why? Why is it important for people to hear it? And it might take time for you to figure that out. It did take time for me to figure that out, but always be asking those questions. And that is how you find your voice as a filmmaker. And that is how you eventually stand out. Not that this question should stop you from creating, continue to create, but as you create, ask these questions of yourself all the time. And I think it'll serve you well when you eventually figure out what it is you are you're going to be sure of yourself, and you're going to be confident in your craft. And yeah, I think that's what I should leave you with.
Thank you very much, Cordia. I know you already said it earlier that you have a hard stop, so we'll just exclude you to jump up while we continue with the whole webinar with people involved. So
sure. Thank you, George.
You
it was nice meeting everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Kempy, are you there? Kempy, over to you.
A mic is mute.
Oh, Kempy, your mic is mute.
Or at least we can't hear you.
Okay, so let me just go on. I will actually introduce you to Mr. Fabian. I know I've just met Mr. Fabian barely like 2 weeks. I'm happy that he actually jumped on board. I will give them room to talk about finance and at the same time talk about the AI revolution as well and tech in storytelling so that we can actually understand the whole company. So, Mr. Fabian, if you are
sorry, I lost you in the last part. Tech in what? So I lost the last second. You said tech in what? The questions, AI, financing, and you said something else.
Yes, no, AI, financing, that's where we go. And we leave you to explore yourself towards what your job also is so that young filmmakers can tap in from that.
Okay. All right. So I run a production company in South Africa, and in the UK, and we also have some interests in Nigeria. I'm primarily based in South Africa, but I divide my time between South Africa and the UK. I started out behind the camera in a way. Started by doing voiceovers and writing, started out in commercials before moving to in front of the camera. I've worked as an actor, as a writer, but even all that while, I always owned my own production company. And where we are going now as a production company or as a creative entity is also based on the revolution of AI in a way, but also even before the advent of AI, knowing that running a creative business, the only way it's sustainable is to be able to develop and own your own IP and products. So a lot of the things that we're doing is in line with that. As a producer and as a creative, one of the lapses that I saw, particularly in Africa and with Black filmmakers, is a certain lack of understanding on the financial aspect of the creative industry. Being a producer means to a certain degree, you should have some kind of funding and finance literacy. Apart from maybe South Africa and maybe the North African countries, film financing is quite sophisticated. You have a lot of access to tax rebates and incentives. Nigeria or Nollywood is perhaps, I would say, the only major film industry out of the 3 film industries, which is Bollywood and Hollywood, that actually doesn't have a robust tax incentive and tax rebates to fund the creative industry. So one of the things we've developed is we try to develop is a platform called Proculator. And what that platform does basically is to help simplify that process for a lot of filmmakers, particularly Black filmmakers here in the UK and in South Africa. For those of you who might not necessarily understand tax incentives and rebates within the creative space, I know somebody from the mentioned the Namibian Film Commission, so I'm sure he's quite very conversant with it. Basically, what tax incentives and tax rebates are, to give you a practical example, if you were to take South Africa, for instance, and as a young filmmaker, you want to make a movie, they have DTI, which is the Department of Trade and Industry. You would go and you will submit your proposal. They would say, okay, we will give you 35 or 50% of your budget back. So let's say your budget is, for argument's sake, $1 million. They would say, okay, the tax rebates and incentives for your category, because you're Black or because you're a woman or because you fall into this range, is 50%, meaning they will give you $500,000. That $500,000 you don't have to pay back, but you must spend the 1 million. All right. So you then need to go and look for the other 1 million. But there are things you need to abide by in order to qualify for these things. And so what you tend to find is a lot of African filmmakers either don't know that there is access to various types of tax incentives all over the world. You take the UK, for instance, the UK is 50%. So as, let's say, a Nigerian filmmaker, for instance, as a young Nigerian filmmaker, you could decide, okay, this story that I want to tell, maybe I can set it within the Nigerian community in the UK. And that could give you access to, let's say, I don't know, whatever the tax rebate in the UK is, which is about, I think right now it's sitting around 50%. It's a crucial aspect of film funding and financing that even Hollywood gets a lot of free money. So you probably notice that a lot of films are being shot in Georgia. So in America, what tends to happen is the states compete to give tax incentives. All right. So certain states will say, okay, come and shoot this movie in our state and we'll give you 35% of your budget back. From a financing point of view, it feels like it's free money, but actually it's not, even though the filmmaker is not paying. Remember, once you must spend a minimum amount. Once you spend that amount, things like the government gets back things like VAT, PAYE. So there's a lot of accounting and a lot of record keeping that needs to be done in order for you to actually claim at the end of your production. But that's how a lot of big films are financed. That's also why a lot of films are actually shot in South Africa, because South Africa gives quite a robust tax incentives for Hollywood to come and shoot there. And in the process, you know, a lot of South African talent are also used as crew and as talent in front of the camera. So that's quite crucial to understand the various means in which you can raise soft money to offset your production cost. Now, AI, to a certain degree, is also, I believe, is also playing a part in that, because, you know, now I believe with AI, certain costs like even script writing and script editing, you might be able to do it through AI. The only concern that I tend to have with AI is really copyright issues, because obviously once you've used AI, you've already put your idea there. So I think AI plays more for me in the part of, I'll say, production management rather than the actual content creation, because it is still up in the air. Where I feel, for instance, especially young filmmakers need to focus in relation to AI is actually the use of AI in production management, in logistics, in finance structure, right? So for instance, if you don't have access now to some of the scheduling softwares, I believe those are things you can put into AI and perhaps be able to understand what's the best way to schedule your shoots. So I think apart from the creative side, there's such an advantage to using AI for all the other elements of production. The creative side, like I said, I personally worry more about the copyright issues in using AI for creativity, and understand also that, you know, it's whatever you feed it, it's going to learn from that and feed someone else that same idea or a version of it if somebody comes up with something similar to that. So right now, I'm a bit wary of using AI on the creative side, but I think its its potential on the other aspects of the creative industry is immense. Is immense. It can help obviously with like the other speaker mentioned, when you look at what's happening in terms of animation, in terms of storyboarding, you know, it can really speed up your creative process in terms of storyboarding your story. So no doubt, with AI, it's important that I think young filmmakers understand it. It's no different, I think, from when people used to shoot on film, and back in the days, a DOP understood everything about optics, which is physics, right? I'm talking about proper, back in the days, DOPs that had to understand everything about lighting. And it was a really academic process. So when you see a DOP, you know, they were not just cameramen. They understood everything because there wasn't the kind of technology that you have today to kind of break down the lighting process for you. Everything had to be in your head to a certain degree, right? And you have to understand how that's going to impact on film because we're actually shooting on physical film. Now, when film started disappearing, you know, that particular skill or knowledge set, you know, kind of waned, but it resurfaced in the sense that all it did was you have to now understand it on the digital front. And I think when digital cameras came into being, it probably had the same type of effect on the industry, you know, as AI is having now. That, oh, you actually don't need to, you know, understand how it's going to work on the physical film. You know, so it won't necessarily kill the industry. I think it will create a new set of talent, a new set of understanding of how we will be able to put our creativity on screen. But more importantly, I think to a certain degree, like the other speaker mentioned, it is creating a form of, it's democratizing the process of filmmaking. It's making it more accessible. And as it's making it more accessible, there are more platforms as well in which you can show your work. The only downside of that is the more platforms you have, the harder it is to monetize because you're going to have less eyeballs on each platform, which then means there's huge segmentation. Right? So when you have more platforms, you have more segmentation. The more segmentation you have, the more difficult it is to monetize effectively, you know, with as many eyeballs on a particular platform. So I don't know if there's anything else you would like me to touch on.
I'm pretty sure there will be questions from the people listening. I won't speak for them because everybody here needs to hear and actually put in one or two questions just to learn more. You understand? Because we're here to like learn from each other. So, Fabian, thank you. I don't know if there is any question from house, Tempia. I think something is wrong with your mic, Tempia.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. I said that was a good one, Fabian. Thank you for touching on the financing of film financing, which is one of the challenges, as mentioned by Korede, right? That many people say it's possible for you to work on any kind of budget, but it's important for you to know that there are certain kind of films that you will make that will catch the air. And talking about the spending and minimum amounts that you can use on film, right? It's different. Thank you. I would like to quickly just ask Fabian. I know that there are people here who would want to share in some questions, but how do you think that actors can contribute to the growth of African cinema beyond just performing roles? Because I know, of course, we are doing a lot in the film industry so far, and Africa is the next big thing, or maybe presently the big thing, and we can see that in the Black Panther movie. I was doing a summary of it sometime just some weeks ago, and I couldn't but help to see how much creativity was put into that film. And I know that we have more stories to tell, which is said that there are nobody can tell your story better than you. And of course, as Africans, we have a lot to put out there. What are some of the untapped opportunities in African filmmaking that you think that young talents should explore, apart from the financing that you mentioned?
Um, I think you kind of nailed it. It's really about the understanding our narratives. But
Hello,
can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
So I think you did nail it in terms of we have amazing narratives, that we can tap into. But I'm also quite wary when we tend to look at Hollywood. And I know a lot of like an African filmmakers tend to use Black Panther as a reference. But from a business point of view, you must also understand that Black Panther as a concept has existed in comic form. It had an established audience before it was made into a film. All right. And that audience was quite global. And the themes of Black Panther, which a lot of people also don't, it was to a certain degree, a lot of the Marvel comics were actually talking about political themes of the time. All right. And that's the subtext of all those cartoons, all those comic books. So, and they're still relevant today. So if there's any learning for me as a producer, as an actor, is to say, okay, how do we tap into storylines that are, I would say, traditionally are in our cultural DNA, that we can tap into, that still have relevance today. We have amazing writers across Africa, and often I've seen people do films of some books I won't mention, and it's been such a huge disappointment because the quality of the film adaptation is nowhere near the actual book. Not in terms of it having to be exact, but when you look at our African literature, they can stand anywhere in the world. And so far, I haven't seen anyone that has been able to adapt any of our books on film at the same level and quality which they were written. So that's also, so we do have those opportunities. And I think it's also to understand that Africa is not, we keep saying this, right? Africa, well, maybe not everyone, but Africa, as much as we shout one Africa, the beauty about Africa is its diversity.
Yeah.
And the thing about a diverse place is to understand that not everything will appeal to everyone. All right. So you might, and we need to be comfortable with that. We need to be comfortable with the fact that, okay, I'm doing this Kenyan film. I hope it crosses to Nigeria. But if it doesn't, let me be sincere and as authentic to this one story. Right? Because if we continue to water down our culture for the sake of commercialism, of crossing over, for me as a creative, we lose a certain authenticity in that process. And that's not to say things can't cross over. But when you're trying to appeal to the West, you're trying to, there's something that you lose in it. And I think African creatives need to be comfortable in operating in their world. And I think the music industry is such a great example of that, and I'm not even referring to the music industry as it is now, from time immemorial, you will have your Sunny Ade singing is Juju. You will have Papa Wemba singing. I don't know what the name of the genre was. You have the guys in Mali with their kora. And when you look at all that period, there was just so much creativity. No one was trying to be anyone else. And it flourished to the point that they had to create a section called world music, because there was just so much diversity coming, not just from Africa, from a lot of other places as well that just didn't fit in. So I think for me, that's kind of where we need to be as African filmmakers, to be able to create a pool of such diverse film content from across the continent, that every time you come in, you see something new, you see something that's not trying to be American. I'm a strong believer in doing a lot of things in our local languages, and I think that's one of the beauty that I saw working a lot in South Africa. There's such a, yes, there's a lot of English content, but also there's such a huge array of local content at very, very high quality level.
Thank you for sharing that insight. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you're muted again. We can't make a word out of anything, but
Hello?
yeah, great. We can hear you. Oh, it's not very good. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last. I can hear you.
Can you
Are
hear me?
you? Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So, thank you, Fabian, for sharing your world of experience. Someone asked on the comment section, it has a question. He said, can Fabian talk some more about the role of AI in post-production, focusing on translation and subtitling in different African languages?
Okay. Again, I still think, so if you talk about translations, first of all, yes, I think it speeds up the process, but I think at the stage at which AI is, it still needs a human element. And I think it will continue to need a human element for a very long time, and especially when it relates to Africa, because first of all, African languages are not literal. So when you're translating an African language, if you really understand that African language, we speak in proverbs and idioms, and it's not a literal language, right? And the people programming AI are not Africans. right? So no matter what they program into AI, I personally believe from a cultural point of view and from a linguistic point of view, in terms of most African languages and to a certain degree, non-European languages, I think it would still fall short. So I feel that's one area until perhaps we create our own AI, in the sense that we program our own AI to understand Yoruba, Igbo, Zulu, Swahili, in a manner in which when it gives you that translation, right, it's giving it that translation like you're actually speaking to somebody that speaks the language. And so I think in terms of AI translations for African languages, I still think we have a long way to go. And it's important that we realize that these things are not necessarily being created for us. So people shouldn't just say because there's a Swahili translator on this particular platform that it's right. So that's my key thing in terms of AI and translation. I think we have a lot to do to make sure that we don't our language doesn't get bastardized by the fact that the people building these things actually don't necessarily care for linguistic authenticity. And it's our responsibility to ensure that even if you use it, you then go back and make sure that it aligns more with how the language would sound if they were actually interpreting that thing in English, and vice versa. I don't know if that answers that person's question.
Tajudeen, are you clear? If you're clear, you can just give us a thumbs up. I think so. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna switch into the next panelist to talk about women in film, and that is going to be talked by Janet Chumbe. Then, because we've been talking about funding, let's switch into something that is a bit touchy, because women are at the center of the conversation right now. So let's actually hear our mothers talk to us. Thank you, Janet. The mic is yours.
Hi, my name is Janet Chumbe from Nairobi. I'm a writer and director, mostly with a robust background on TV. I've done a couple of TV shows for ranging around 10 years. In that time also, I've gotten a chance to do a couple of shorts and a few features here and there. And just even speaking on just the span of 10 years that I've actively been in the industry, the role of women has sort of really, I don't want to say changed, but it's been quite a positive journey for us, because women are actually in a position where they're like shaping the industry in really, really profound ways, both in front and behind the camera, of course. Because when we think of how the roles of women, you mentioned, what is it? You mentioned Wakanda Forever. I think the name of the movie just left my brain for a minute. And you're thinking of how the representation of African women was done in the movie, given what used to be there like years back. So we can see the representation on screen, even given the roles, the portrayal of women has evolved like significantly, from the whole traditional damsel in distress to really, really, proper multifaceted roles. And I think that over the years has really changed, which is really a good thing. Behind the scenes as well, we've got amazing women directing. We've got women being nominated for the Oscars and actually winning for directing. And I find it's a time where it's not even the conversation anymore. It's just we've gotten to a time where a filmmaker is a filmmaker, not necessarily a woman filmmaker or something. So then when a director is on set, it's the craft, it's the knowledge that the person embodies. And the whole idea of just this person being a woman is sort of, it's not as it used to be. That I can say. And then even, in the beginning, the whole worry of women being in film was most of the films that were done by women or like were all women themed didn't get much success, I would say, or like box office success, because then it was sort of, it's like being in the NBA, women NBA or something. It wasn't something that's commercialized well. But given the success of Barbie and Ava DuVernay doing Selma and the power of the dog, the kind of films that have sort of gained really good success and women are behind them. So then with time, I find that the gap is really being bridged. And at some point, it will get to just being the craft and not necessarily having like a women in film awards, just filmmakers awards, And given that, I think that the barrier has already been broken, sort of, and reshaped in terms of like a systematic change, So what remains, which is something I think a conversation that will take maybe longer, is the fact that still, in terms of budgets, like the shows or the movies that are given to women, you find that the budget isn't necessarily as big as it would be if it were a man behind that. And then we'll still continue having conversations about equal pay, which I find in good time that will change. I would like to believe that. And ultimately, women, will just have stories, because stories are stories. It's just human stories, diverse, and not necessarily having a woman directing a female-oriented story or having a woman directing love or something. Just us guys being in a position where the craft speaks for itself and everyone is allowed to explore whatever genre of film that a woman would like to do. Thank you. Any question?
Thank you, Janet. Any question from attendees and panelists? You can ask, please. We're here to listen, to learn from everyone. Any question from the attendees?
If I may, Joel, just
Yeah.
So in Namibia, we have for a week now a female president and a female vice president, and half of our cabinet is now ministers. But our president, it's fantastic, guys. It's really cool. But what our president in her inauguration speech said is she wants, and this echoes what you said, Janet, she wants us as a country to move away from viewing her as a female president. She wants to be a president. And this goes with the cabinet and everything. Of course, that kind of representation is unheard of in any African country. I would like to put across that basically half of our executive is female. So Minister of Health, Minister of Information, Minister of Home Affairs, the lot, it's all women, president, vice president, women. But her stance is, let's please be treated as professionals in our arena. Yes, we come from a difficult past, and women traditionally have always been in a difficult position, and still to this day for that matter. But why I'm bringing this up is just because Namibia is currently in a very fascinating place, and I think we'll keep you posted on how it goes, but it looks very promising. And obviously we also deal with a lot of traditional elements where the role of women has always been like not one of empowerment or actually having agency. And so a lot of mind shifts from different cultural backgrounds have to change now, start changing. And let's see where it goes. But yeah, just as a little bit of contribution.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you totally. I think I should move to Namibia.
Yes.
Okay.
Me?
Please, by all means.
Mhm.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Cynthia, we can hear you.
Oh, finally.
You're welcome back.
I get to be super excited about your journey so far, Janet. It's one that is very encouraging to women across Africa, and I mean in the global space. Most times women see the challenges of funding in women-led films and all that. I was just, how can those issues, major challenges that women face can be addressed? I'm excited with what you have said so far, and how you were able to break some certain barriers. Women, compared to what it was before, have taken up that leadership, that ownership of the film industry, and they're doing it exceptionally well. But I know there's, because of the fear of what have really held back at pushing those boundaries. So can you give us some advice to women on how they can be able to address those issues, majorly on the challenges?
Okay, so honestly, the industry still struggles with the whole gender disparity thing. And I think mostly when it comes to money, because they'll applaud you for being able to direct the movie, but then they'll slash your budget to like 3/4 because they're assuming for some reason women are cheaper in the industry. But that, that it's way back from Hollywood to how it came to us, to cinema. And what is happening actually in Kenya is the TV industry sort of had a wave of having a woman director in every TV show. So when it started, it was more of, because most directors were male. So if the TV show has like 3 or 4 directors, we find that there's like one female director. And then over the years, these female directors have sort of had a chance to be independent. So then, given that we were sort of included, it made us have the information that you would know when this budget is being slashed because you're a woman, because you've been in the ground enough to know exactly what you're supposed to be paid, exactly how much the budget should be. So even as you go to the negotiating table, you find that you're very informed, because at this point, I think that's what we can do, is just having enough information to the point when you sit down with like studio executives or like TV networks, you can justify why your budget should be what it should be, and that all the women that you're going to employ do the same work the men do. So then the rate just has to be, has to be the same. At this point, it's more of I think that's what I can offer, more of like a knowledge sort of thing. So when you go to negotiate, you're not negotiating as a woman, you're negotiating as a professional, someone who has learned a craft over years. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That has touched on a lot. Thank you so much, Janet. And I didn't get you from the beginning where you're from. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Cynthia.
Hello.
So that question is directed to Janet, right?
Make a comment on Janet says.
Okay. So I think Janet is from Janet has mentioned already, she's from Nairobi, Kenya.
Nairobi, okay.
Yeah, that already. So
if I may, Janet, I don't know if you've been able to, because this issue of gender representation within the creative industry, I think, well, gender representation in every industry is something that's very topical everywhere. But Nigeria seems to be, for me, a very unique case, in the sense that because the Nigerian industry is not necessarily commission-based, so the Nigerian producers, apart from when Netflix and Amazon came in, it was never, so there's NTA in Nigeria, so the broadcasters don't really commission. Yes, you've got your multi-choice, but the industry is very independently driven in terms of cinema and their own platforms. And what you tend to find in the Nigerian case is that if you look at the top producers in Nigeria in terms of revenue and production, most of them actually are women.
Yes, true.
The Nigerian film industry, funny enough, is actually a female-led industry, particularly in terms of revenue generation and revenue collection. So when you count, in any year, when you count, for instance, all the box office hits, they tend to be female-led films, but also female-led production companies. From Mo, from Funke Akindele, it's the Nigerian industry is actually a very female-led industry. So I think maybe there's a learning there. I think so. For instance, why is that? I think maybe because a lot of them are not necessarily waiting for commissions, but I also know that across Africa, it's hard because even South Africa, even the UK, funny enough, they don't have a film industry. Most people don't know that. It's they have an industry that services films, but people aren't going to the cinema every day to go and watch British produced films. Right? But in Nigeria, people are going to watch Nigerian produced films. All right. However, because of the pound, all these other film industries are probably worth more than the Nigerian film industry in terms of dollar to the naira. But in terms of local content, that's why they always say there are actually only 3 film industries in the world, which is Nigeria, Bollywood, and Hollywood, because they produce content for the local market, and the local market actually goes to consume that content more than they consume content from any other place. So I think maybe that's the advantage that some of the female-led filmmakers in Nigeria tend to have, whereas the other markets tend to be a bit more commission-based. So for instance, if MultiChoice were to pull out from Nigeria tomorrow, yes, it will create a bit of a havoc in terms of those, but the industry will still continue even without them. It might lower, but people will still produce content, and there will still be places for people to consume that content. So I think my learning in that is, in order to bring up more of a fair playing field, it might be about how do you stimulate the industry locally, where you're not at the mercy of those who commission you for content, and then you then have to deal with the issue that because one is a female or from a particular region, you're getting less budget.
Thank you very much, David.
Yeah, good point. Good points. I like what Nigerians have done. I think they've sort of created an industry over the years, and the industry keeps working and it keeps getting better. Because right now on YouTube, I think they've taken over YouTube with their movies. There's like movies every week. Those guys are checking movies every week, and it's millions of views, which I think as Kenyans or maybe other African countries is something we could learn from how the Nigerians are working, which I like the point you said, because us guys, our industry is very dependent on commissioning, because most of our biggest shows or movies are commissioned. Still having independent producers do their own projects is still something guys are still learning to do, mostly, again, money and budgets. But there's a way Nigerians have cracked the whole budget thing where you can watch a film that has like 2 locations, like an apartment and maybe some restaurant, and it's a full film. So then I think all of us need to learn from that, approach, as opposed to always thinking of big budgets.
Thank you. So I think with this, right, it's going to lead us to Cassandra speaking about funding and distribution, unlocking the global access. Right now, it's us to listen about the whole funding that we're talking about lately. Now we're leaving it to the expert to lead us into the journey of unlocking this success and the access towards getting what is important. Thank you, Cassandra. The mic is yours.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. I can.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. It's been quite insightful listening to Janet and Fabian and Tim. So I'm Cassandra. I work in distribution. I've worked in distribution for the past 7 years and counting, focused mainly on West African films. So, there's a quote I always like to say, which is a remix of a very popular quote. They always say content is queen, but I say if content is queen, marketing is king and distribution is the kingmaker, because you can have awesome content. If you're not marketing it well and no one knows about it, do you still have awesome content? And if you're not distributing your film and you're not making art for the sake of art, right? You're not someone with some trust fund who is just making movies because, it's a nice hobby, and you're not making money from it, it can get very frustrating. Are you still a filmmaker? So distribution is key, and distribution is linked to funding. If you're going to, one of the things that, a lot of times you see in pitch decks, when you're going to look for money in, banks, foreign institutions, or even private individuals, is that people will have the whole production plan. Maybe they might have a very little section of very generic marketing, almost no distribution plan. And your distribution plan is basically your ROI strategy, right? That's how you're going to tell someone who's funding your film that this is how you're going to make back their money. So if you don't have that already, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. So even before you go looking for funding, it's important to understand the kind of film you're making, who you are making it for. Not every film lends itself to cinema. Not every film lends itself to certain platforms. Some films are best suited for the small screen, like TV. So you hear things like made for TV movies. Some films are best for streaming, right? Not every film needs to go to the cinemas, especially because cinemas, distributing, theatrical distribution can be quite expensive. So understanding that, who am I making this film for? What is my distribution plan? What is my distribution plan? What is my marketing plan? How do I intend to get people to know about this film? And when people know about it, where am I going to put it for people to go watch it? So that's very important before you even start thinking of funding, because now there are a lot of stories of filmmakers who took money, who got money from grants, got money from banks, from organizations, and there was nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing to show for it. Some of those films are still sitting in shelves. They are still sitting in hard drives. And it's not that those movies were not good. Some of them were actually quite good, but there was no plan. Nobody was thinking ahead of those films. Nobody was thinking, okay, I've made this film now, who's going to buy it? Most times it's an afterthought. So it's important to think about that before you start going into funding. Now, in terms of funding, there are different types of sources, right? For me, I would say that if you're just starting out, grants would be a good place to start because it puts a lot less pressure on you. So grants and commissioned projects. So commissioned projects could be branded short films. It could be impact films. Excuse me, it could be documentaries. It could also be, grants that fund short films that might not necessarily be, branded films or impact films. So it's important because the creative business, especially the film business, is unique. It's not like a buying and selling business where, okay, if you put in this, you're sure to get this, right? A lot of times you shoot, edit, do your post-promotion. Sometimes it takes a year, sometimes longer, right? Most African investors don't understand that or don't want to have to wait that long. So when you're just starting out, it's good to look at grants. It's good to look at, other sort of commissioned work. So that's on grants. Now, grants, African-based grants, like I think Fabian was the one who was speaking about it. You don't really have, besides tax incentives, you don't really have a lot of grants that are tailored for African films or documentaries. At least not African-run grants. Most times you'll find foreign grants run by foreign organizations, foreign governments. France and Germany, and I think Belgium too, they're very involved in funding films, especially in, so for Germany in East Africa, in Namibia, in Nairobi, in Kenya, in Rwanda. So there's a lot of grants that are, given out to filmmakers, especially to make short films. And I think in a way, it's also why distribution is not very developed there because if you've already been paid for a film, the incentive to go having this robust distribution is not really there. I've interacted with a couple of Kenyan filmmakers, and I'm always saying you guys are so lucky because you don't even, where a Nigerian is hustling to have to pay back some of the money he's raised, a lot of Kenyan filmmakers, not all, but a lot of Kenyan filmmakers, have commission projects and grants. Then you have the French in West Africa funding a lot of those films, but you don't really, you have very few institutions, African institutions that are funding African films, right? So that's that. Then you have loans. You have institutions like Bank of Industry in Nigeria. You have Afrexim Bank. You have Chapel Hill Denham. You have the African Film Fund. So these are some of the organizations that are coming up, and they are funding African films via loans. Equity in Nigeria, not so much with institutions, but with private financiers. So it's not uncommon to find, well-off people with a little bit of money to spare to fund executive produced films in exchange for equity in the film. Sometimes it's mixed, sometimes it's you pay back the loan, but then there's also some form of equity that comes with it. So it's really about what is decided at the end of the day. So then, of course, there's tax incentives, there's tax rebates. There are some countries that will let you shoot, and then you have discounts for locations. So if you're shooting, there are certain locations. I think in New Orleans and state of Georgia, there are certain locations that you shoot at and you get certain discounts, just for shooting there. In the UK, you have funds that allow you certain rebates and discounts, but it needs to be a film of a certain budget. So I think something along the lines of, I think 10 million pounds or 5 million pounds, it's a lot. So again, there's that handicap for African filmmakers, because how many of our films have high enough a budget to qualify for some of these rebates, right? Because you need to have to shoot at a certain budget to be eligible to some of these grants. So, so that's that. Then another way is also co-productions. So co-productions could be informal. It could be as simple as a filmmaker who knows in Nigeria, who knows another filmmaker in Namibia, for instance, and they decide, okay, let's combine resources and shoot. Maybe we'll have actors and actresses from the two countries. Maybe we'll shoot partly here and partly there. That's one way to do it. And there's a more formalized way, which is when you have treaties, co-production treaties. Again, these are not very common in Africa between African countries. What you usually have is African countries and foreign countries. So Africa, and so it could be, Senegal and France, for instance, or South Africa and Norway. So you don't have a lot of co-production treaties happening on the continent between African countries. I know that recently Nigeria signed some form of treaty with Brazil. I don't have all the details, but again, even though Brazil is one of the largest, is one of the countries with the largest Black people, population of Black people, it's still not, an African country. So we don't really have that between African countries, which is sad, because there's so much that we could do. We're always thinking of Europe and America and the Americas in general, which is good. But even within the ecosystem, within the African ecosystem, I feel like there's a lot of money that we're leaving on the table. So yeah, so in summary, this is what we have in terms of funds and distribution. I'll stop here so that you can ask your questions.
Okay. So before the questions, right, I think let's just jump on this thing. Let's have a soft talk about Pan-African collaboration, strengthening topics, and have a very strong Q&A session. Let's start us off. The mic is turned up for you, please.
Hi, Joel.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Nice having you
Hello.
here, sir.
Same here, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Is it my turn?
Yes, it's your turn.
All right. Thank you for the invite. I think most of the speakers have touched on the importance of Pan-African collaborations. And it's simple. It's pretty much because we share similar stories. We have shared realities. We have shared economics. At least across West Africa, we have more than 10 countries that uses the same currency, right? And we have cross-border people, right? Like we have Nigerians in Niger, we have Nigerians in Ghana, we have Nigerians in Cameroon, and they are in those countries not as Nigerians. It's just that you could have huge settlement of Fulanis in those places, which then bet the reason why shouldn't we have Pan-African films, especially for a continent like ours, where individual market is not as big as the West, right? Nollywood is as big as what it is currently because Nigerians in Nigeria watches Nigerian films, and we have Nollywood films that are also being consumed in other regions within Africa, but probably dubbed in other languages. So imagine if we can have a Nigerian film company do a co-production with another African country, and you don't have just a situation whereby they're dubbing the language in another language, but actually create stories that require some part of the story set in, let's say, Nigeria, and some part of the story set in another African country. I think that exposes us to shared opportunities. Like Fabian mentioned, there are countries in Africa, like South Africa, they have film treaty. We don't have. They have more film incentives there in South Africa. We don't have. So imagine if a Nigerian production company can co-create a film, like a feature-length film that could go to theater in South Africa and in Nigeria. I kind of believe that this can expose such work or such collaboration to the kind of incentives that are not readily available in Nigeria, for instance, but are available in South Africa. And when such works are created, they are created as a product that has a bigger market size, right? Because now you're now looking at distribution, not just only to Nigeria and not just to South Africa. You're looking at a potential distribution to both countries. And that can only make whatever you're creating bigger in terms of Pan-African, considering Pan-African film. Language can still be a barrier, but you can tell what this can become if it becomes a norm. At the moment, Nollywood seems bigger in terms of number of productions that we churn out yearly compared to other African countries. And in terms of consumption as well, Nollywood still consume more than any other African country. Like Nigerian consume more Nollywood films than South African consume South African films. Do you get? So how can we then export this goodwill, right, to other African countries and not just see other countries as an extension of distribution, but actually see it as an extension of creation, whereby we can create our own story, connect our peoples together, infuse our languages, infuse our culture in one product then we can ship within our own region and also find interesting enough to export to the West. I would say these are the goods that comes with Pan-African films. Although it does come with its own challenges, right? It's not as easy as said. And then using our own last project as a case study. By the way, my name is Esa Voluche, for those that doesn't know, and I'm a writer, producer, and director for a company, an independent studio here in Nigeria, in Lagos, called Aesop Films. Using the last project that we did, which is 3 Cold Dishes, as a case study, as much as it does comes with its good, making it was very challenging. And it's nothing specifically targeted to filmmaking or filmmakers, right? I think it's everything that we share as African. Just imagine just traveling from Nigeria to Abidjan by road through our borders. Even though on the surface, it looks like you don't need visa to go from Lagos to Ivory Coast. But to cross those borders, it is tough. Then imagine moving a team of almost 70, 80 crew members and cast members to cross those borders, right? And knowing fully well how expensive time can be on film production, like almost every day costs you as much, like every day is a fraction of whatever your total budget is. And if you lose a day, it's easier for you to be held at the border as an individual traveler, as opposed to a production being held at the borders, right? So there's still some challenges, which is not specifically targeted at filmmakers. It's just the way our environment is still kind of wired, and we just hope that we can have, from my perspective, I hope for a day where we can have borderless countries, like the same way we have United States of America and other states are just like states. Hopefully we can get to that stage whereby logistics are easier from an African country, because these are some huge factors that influence the budget of a film, especially for a Pan-African film, knowing fully well that you're moving not just the actors, you're moving the entire chain across the countries that you are filming. So it does comes with its own challenges, but some of the opportunities that it also offer is the opportunity to the platform to collaborate. Like for 3 Cold Dishes that we did over the last 2 years, We have partners from Nigeria. And because it's a Pan-African film, that also exposed us to do a co-production with an Ivorian production company. And because we had an Ivorian production company on the board, that exposed us to a grant that Francophonie can access in France. Even though it wasn't open to Anglophone filmmakers, but because of the co-production deal that we have, right, for Three Cold Dishes, we were able to access some grants in France, for instance, that are open to filmmakers in Benin, Togo, Ghana, Senegal, Ivory Coast, even though the film is not fully set in all those countries. But the co-production kind of gave us that opportunity to access those kind of opportunities. And these are risk-free money, like off our budget. And those are some of the benefits that this pool, the opportunity of doing a Pan-African film, kind of bring on the table. And beyond the funding side, it also broadens the market size of the product that you're creating, which is the film. Like for Three Cold Dishes, we have English and French, which means, and it's almost like 50% English and 50% French, although it's still seen as a Nigerian film. But because we also had talents in the regions where the story is set, it's not only just seen as a Nigerian film, because when shared in those countries, they see their stars in it. They could hear their language in the teaser. So it feels like their film as well. So this also now broadened the distribution opportunities for a film like Three Cold Dishes. So as opposed to just depending on what we can make in the Nigerian box office, we're banking on what we can make in pretty much every West African countries that has cinema distribution opportunities in those countries, right? For a film like Three Cold Dishes. And that can only be possible because it's a Pan-African film. I guess in some way this covers the advantage and some of the challenges that is prone to such project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asaf. Your information is so tough, because for us in the Young Lions Film Festival, we're more about the whole driving force of bringing the African we want, where there is all inclusion, where people of younger demographic can actually associate. I can see myself going into Namibia today. Then I have a brother in Namibia that we have actually associated. He's a filmmaker like myself. So for me, Pan-Africanism starts with collaboration. And it's not all about just saying I'm a Nigerian or I'm an African or I'm this. So it's more like saying we are involved in everything we do. So just to take you back, before we go back to Cassandra's Q&A, just to ask this stuff. Do you think this particular Pan-African collaboration, do you think is possible? And do you see us making films together in the next 5 years or 2 years or 3 years or even 6 months? Because for me, I am more of a positive person, and I feel it's going to be positive to actually swing into action like yesterday. Because one of the things that we are thinking of having in the main festival is like having a pitch where it's actually being a West Africa meets a North Africa collaboration film. Then you have funding and you go do this particular project yourself, you understand? So you have all those things. So do you think it's possible?
I think it's possible. And the reason why I think it's possible is because it's been done, right? We have more than 1, 2, 3, like we could count a couple of films that falls in that category. So I think it's very possible. It all boils to you as a filmmaker. What do you want to create? What kind of film do you want to make? And do you see your story? Do you see a shared or a common ground for your story in another African countries, right? That you can explore opportunities within, right? So it all is all on the table of the filmmaker. Like, what are you trying to create? If you have such products, you have the network to pull to bring it to life, then it's possible, right? When we were creating Three Cold Dishes, for instance, it happens to be a story that I it was better from personal experience. And that personal experience was just me traveling from Lagos to Ouagadougou for a FESPACO Film Festival. And then I saw something that I had a different idea of it, which is trafficking. And most films, in fact, not most, I think 100% of films that has been made from Africa that touch on trafficking explore the story of trafficking from Africa to Europe. And in the course of researching, right, we realized that it's in that line because there are funding for films that kind of explore such story from Africa to Europe. It means you can then get access to funding in Europe to create that film. But in actual sense, right, 90% of the victims of trafficking never leave the shore of Africa, which means there is the 90% of the reality that has never been explored. So the question is, why is nobody telling the story? Why is nobody telling the story? Nobody's going to come from Europe to tell the story. It would take the intention of an African storyteller to kind of probably make it happen. And the fact that people haven't done it before in the research phase, you will probably realize why nobody has tried to explore the reality of trafficking from an African country to another African country, even though that's the real, not to share away from some of the victims that their destination was Europe, but the majority of the victims never leaves the shore of Africa. And in your research, you will realize the major problem is in funding, because the question is, who are you making it for, right? For a trafficking story that is Africa to Europe can be used for educational purpose in Europe, right? To discourage people from coming to the country, to the destination country for prostitution. So maybe that could be the reason why it's getting huge funding from the destination country. But when you look at it from our own point of view, you are looking at consumers, right? There's no PR. There's no PR economic attachment to the project. So you as a filmmaker would have to be intentional enough to say you want to tell the story, because that's our responsibility anyways. This is the only constituency that we can win. And then when you can beat that, you look at creating it. To create it, it might be too much on you as a solo filmmaker or as a Nigerian filmmaker. How about I partner with like another production company in some of the countries that this reality is very prominent, right? To reduce my level of investment in it, and also kind of expand the size of the project when it comes to distribution phase. So is it possible? 100% is very possible. Can it be done? It can be done. Is there any gate pass to it? Nothing. There's no gate pass to it. It's just you as a filmmaker thinking that you have a story. If you feel like you have a story, and then you have the network pool to make it happen, it might just be an email away, right? And so, yeah, I guess if that answers your question. And if for filmmakers, for young filmmakers who probably do not have the network pool, because if you think it's hard enough to make a film in Nigeria, for instance, you can imagine making a film in more than one Nigeria. So whatever you think is the challenge that you can face in making that film in Nigeria, just triple that when you have to consider going to shoot in multiple countries. Even though the benefits is good, you also have to look at the other side of it. So for young filmmakers that doesn't have the network pool, the best way is to attend festivals, especially festivals in other African countries, because that gives you avenue to kind of network, right? Build connection with other filmmakers in other regions, and you could start your pitching from there, and you don't know who might be listening. Like most of the partners that we like the foundational partners that we had on Three Cold Dishes were people that I met in festivals in France. Like 2 companies that were on board at the foundation level were people I met at festivals in France, and then from there they also connect other partners that came on board the project. So for filmmakers, it's possible. For young filmmakers, it's possible. If you don't have the network pool, it requires the network pool. But if you don't have the network pool, the easiest is to pretty much attend festivals, attend any industry event, workshop, any event that brings in into the room players from different African countries, because that gives you an avenue to connect, and you don't know what such connection can bridge for future works.
Thank you. So Tajudeen just asked a question, right? He said Nigeria has a few sub-film industries, such as Kannywood, the Igbo film industry, Yoruba film industry, and a couple of others. How do we optimize the rich internal diversity anchored on cultural and ethnicity demography, whether in Nigeria or other parts of Africa where the same situation exists? So do you want to touch that, please?
I mentioned a bit of it earlier. First, you have to understand that film, as much as it's an art, is also a business, right? Every film has an audience. So who are you trying to reach, right? So if you're creating a film and you're trying to target the Southwest Nigeria, for instance, it means your language of choice will most likely be Yoruba, right? If you're trying to create a film and you're looking at targeting the entire Nigeria, it means you have to be strategic enough, even if the story is not set in every state across Nigeria, you have to be strategic enough to pull out talent from like different, like probably have like an Hausa actor, an Igbo actor, a Yoruba actor, to kind of and bring them together in that one film. So because that now gives you marketing leverage in those regions. At least if you're promoting in the North, for instance, you could promote through the eyes of your Northern actors, for instance. And I think a lot of projects in the past have explored that route. For cross-country, it's a bit complicated, right? Because in Africa, apart from South Africa and maybe Nigeria and some countries in the Northern Africa, most other African countries are still in developing stage when it comes to film distribution, especially around theaters, right? Nigeria is quite big because we have limited commission projects and we do not have film incentives. So it's more of business. If you have people that have the resources to create any film project, they want to create it, right? And which is the reason why sometimes there's no structure to what you call a good Nigerian a good Nigerian film, or what is not good for a Nigerian film, because at the back end, always understand that the people that are creating it are probably creating it for a purpose, and commerce might be like the central factor to that, because they're spending life savings to create those works. So for cross country, it might be complicated, right? On the easiest form will be selling a dubbing rights. So let's say this film is a Nigerian film, it's in Pidgin, and you've distributed it in Nigeria. You can still sell like the French rights to a studio like Canal+, right? Where they can dub the entire film in French and then redistribute such film in the Francophonie, for instance. I don't know if that is common with South Africa, but I know that they do it within the Francophonie. If you want to make it bigger, then you can consider all of this at the creation stage, which is in the development stage, in the story development stage, right? How about you have your story set in Nigeria, and also maybe another African country or another West African country that have a shared goal or shared reality that you are exploring in your film, right? And you have to also be strategic in your choice of casting, right? So you don't end up using only Nigerian talents in the film, because that limits how much of marketing visibility or marketing push that you can get in the other country. People will be more will feel more attached to the project, will want to own it more when they see a version, like people that looks like themselves on the project. They will technically own it, right? So those are just a few ways that you can do this.
So thank you, Mr. Asab. I'm pretty sure what Tajudeen's message. So Cassandra, that's bring me back to after Asab just finished talking about this. Collaboration, strengthening our cinematic identity. Now, distribution or locking global access. Now, Asab has spoken about a lot of stuff about we actually getting funding from this and connecting these. You mentioned something about the UK Georgia kind of funding that come in. So for us now as young talent, which we don't even have reels, because first of all, you need to show, but we actually have this tenacity in order to bring out something great, because like we need to bring out something great, but nobody is going to trust us with funding and all those things to say that, come on guys, go and make this high budget film. How can we break even? Or where can we start, and how can we actually get source or funding or material in order to like start doing something that will actually put us in the limelight, where people will actually trust us in full in order to like prove out our real potential and to explore the market where these old people or our seniors are actually in. So do you want to share light in that, please?
So I think if you're new, you're just coming into the industry, obviously, people are not going to trust you with a certain amount of money if you're just coming in. So the best way would be to build your reel, network horizontally as opposed to vertically. So network with your peers, make films, build your reel. There's a filmmaker, Nora Awolowo, who just recently completed her first feature film. But when she started, she was collaborating with her peers in the industry. Because sometimes new emerging filmmakers want to network up. But there is something to be said about networking sideways with your peers, building your reels. Once you build it up to a certain extent, then it's easier to access those funds, because now you have a reel that shows that you know what you're doing. The other thing to do would be to collaborate with other established filmmakers. So you don't necessarily have to direct the film. There are ways, sometimes you'll see producers, right? They might not be very popular, but they will attach a popular director to a project, attach popular cast and crew to a project, and then pitch for money. So that way, the strength is not just lying on your expertise as a producer, it's also lying on this robust crew you have with amazing talent and amazing experience. There's also, co-production. I think it's very interesting what Atus talked about. 3 Cold Dishes. I think is it the one that Pepe is distributing? I think I read about it one time. So
yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So that's another way to have access to these funds, right? Collaborating with other filmmakers. Festivals are very good, especially festivals in other African countries. You might not be able to afford, France. You might not be able to go to Cannes or any of those film festivals in Europe or film markets in Europe, but you can attend other African countries, festivals in other African countries. If you cannot afford to attend festivals, you can search for festivals on Instagram and LinkedIn and start following them. Usually festivals will release the trailers of their selections. Look at the films, look at the trailers, take the name of the director, take the name of the producer, go and research them, see what they've done, and then reach out to them. Let me give you a story. So in 2021, AFRIF, it was their 10th anniversary, and they showcased a film called Binti. Binti is a Tanzanian film, right? The lady, the director of the film, Siko Sante, she's a friend of mine. So she came to Nigeria, we hung out. I introduced her to, there's a producer, Source Production, and, we all talked and everything. Fast forward, I think it was towards the end of last year, they had a Tanzanian Nigerian production with Source Production Studio. So she directed it as a Tanzanian director. I think part of it was shot in Tanzania, part of it was shot in Nigeria. So already, I don't know what the finances of the film or how it was financed, but I'm already imagining the access that this Nigerian producer will have, you know, in the Tanzanian audiovisual landscape, in terms of funding, in terms of marketing, in terms of distribution. Because now, if they want to release a film, they want to do like a cinema release, for instance, they can very easily get into the East African market because you have an East African director from Tanzania. And, you know, I think there was also some cast from Tanzania. So those are the ways, if you're a new or a, you know, not so known filmmaker, those are the ways to get access to certain funds, collaborating with someone who already has access. There's another filmmaker, Williams Ame, who's based in Abuja. He also did a South African co-production, Ike Mefuna. Yes, I think it was Ike Mefuna, that's the name. And so he linked up with some South African film producers via LinkedIn. And, you know, that's how they were talking. And then they eventually, he went to South Africa. He shot the film, I think in South Africa, in Nigeria. And the film had a limited release in South African cinemas. Now, if you know South Africa, you don't have a lot of Nigerian films being released there. But because it was a Nigerian South African co-production, he was able to get not only access to certain funds, but also distribution there. So that's how I would go about it. If, you know, for new filmmakers, networking is key. You might not have direct access to the funds, but you can get in touch with people, network with people, work with people who have either more experience or just more access to those funds that you're looking for. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you very much, Cassandra. And that actually still buttresses what Asaf was saying earlier about connecting the dots. That's mean we need to strengthen our share goal and understand what actually is needed. So this session actually gives me a confidence to say that yes, we are on the right track, and we are happy to have wealth of knowledge from people that are there before us, and they are doing very well. So Tim has a question. I don't know. You have the floor, sir.
No, George. No, it's actually just to tap onto what Cassandra said. Also, just a piece of advice for young filmmakers when it comes to commissioned content. I think there needs to be just an awareness whenever you deal with commissioned content or you get commissioned for work, anything that you do, is that you'll get a lot of notes by the people who are paying for that content. And in some cases, if it's a client and it's an image film, it might be minimal notes. But as soon as you start entering the arena where you are dealing with a television channel, you most likely will be dealing with commissioning editors. And part of their process is by giving notes, they start also taking ownership of the content. And I think that's important to factor in. If you have a passion project, don't take it to be commissioned work. Even in the development stage, usually with commissioned content, there's already a lot of input from commissioning editors or whoever commissions the content. But what commissioned content allows you to do is you are going to have at the back end a place where that content is either going to be broadcast, or if it's a private client that has commissioned the content, they have this very specific purpose why they want that content, meaning your work is going to be seen. And that in itself is a learning curve, because you'll have a connection with an audience, and an audience that responds to the work that you have done. So whereas your own creativity might not be exactly 100% delivered to, you are going to have exposure and going to learn in that process. So maybe just that as a little add-on to what Cassandra was saying.
Thank you very much, Tim. That's very thoughtful to share. So I will say one thing. We are really grateful to have from the life of Asaf, Olisheyu, to Janet Chumbe, to Cassandra Onwu, Allow to Tim Koshko. I need to bite my tongue whenever I'm trying to call some tribals name. To Fabian, these great people are amazing. And we hope to have you people soon because the festival is just starting. That is why it's called a pre-festival round table, just where we're going to have the talk. Now, I will leave it to the audience for 2 seconds. If anyone have a question, please share. But if you don't have, then we can actually wrap it up and call it a day, where everybody needs to go back. To those people that need to sleep, you go back to bed. And those people that need to go and continue day-to-day activity, you can. So thank you very much. Any question? No question. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And we hope to share more information about the Young Lions Film Festival in the week to come. And we hope that the on-site festival is going to be amazing because we have a lineup of activity from the sip and chat with let me just open it with the legendary Dujo Tunga. We're going to be showing his review film, and it's like a rewind film. We're going to be showing Viva River again so that people will watch it at either a beachside where they have a sip of a cocktail, trying to watch a film and enjoying themselves by the beachside, open air, more relaxed and that. Then we have lineups of films to watch because we have like about 147 films submitted to the platform. And the jurors, some of them are part of this panelists, are going to be having a debate about what made it and what didn't make it. So, and at the same time, we're gonna have more of a connection there, which is like more like a booth connection where South Africa meets East Africa, East Africa meets West Africa, West Africa meets North Africa, North Africa meets Central Africa. So for us, it's more about the connection, and we're going to be happy to host everyone soon. And we hope for the best, and in the days to come, we'll share more information. So if we don't have much, we will say thank you, everyone. And if the panelists have something before we wrap up, please, the room now is open to you.
Just to say thank you for all you're doing, Joel, and thank you for bringing this opportunity especially for young aspiring filmmakers across Africa.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were
no,
done.
feel free. It's you.
No, I just wanted to say thank you. I think we do need more festivals on the continent. We need more festivals. We need more avenues for cultural and professional exchange. I like how you said East Africa meets West Africa, North Africa meets South Africa, etc. I do think we need more of those networking, spaces where we can enjoy film and also talk business. Africa is ripe, and in many ways, there's still a lot of things are still nascent in Africa. Even cinema that is sort of dwindling outside in Europe and America it's still in the beginning stage in Africa. There's still a lot to be done. So I think this is an awesome initiative, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see the maiden edition, and yeah, awesome stuff.
Thank you. We're grateful. Tim, anything from you?
No, I think I'm just echoing what the other panelists have said. Definitely, it's a great initiative, and to be part of this and inspire the next generation of filmmakers. I think that's what this is about, and we appreciate all your efforts, George, that you've put forward to this point. And here's to a successful first edition. Absolutely.
Thank you. We're grateful. Janet?
I think again, I echo what Tim has said. It's really a good initiative. I hope we get to start something very, very revolutionary, and we get to inspire the younger generation. And also, this is like a networking space for all of us. At least now I know Tim, I know Cassandra, I know Fabian, I know you. So then I know Olusei, that name. So when I'm in Namibia, I know I can call on Tim or something. So it's quite a good opportunity to network as well.
Thank you very much. To the attendees, I know none of you have said you want to talk, but it's fine. I we're grateful for having you all, and we promise that it's going to be an amazing festival. So I will say with this, do have a wonderful evening and afternoon and night to anybody that is everywhere, and see you in May 1st for the maiden edition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.